Well, I would say my theory might have been correct.
Ha 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 ha! Excellent. Well done. Well done. That's a win for you on troubleshooting.
It's been, I don't know, a few days since I've had to use it. So
Troubleshooting?
troubleshooting, yeah.
Okay. Well, should we just dive right in, or you got something else?
No, we can dive right in.
Because I had follow-up, and I'm mildly excited about it.
I saw a number of things that both of us contributed to the notes. So sure, let's go for it.
Yeah. So the reason I say this, the reason I say I'm mildly excited about it, because it's similar to when I talked about 3.5-inch floppy disks.
All right.
No, what I was going to say is I don't think it was last show, but I think it was 2 ago that we talked about the Apple Watch Ultra and bands, and we couldn't remember things, and so I just made a quick list of case sizes and band compatibility. And I won't make this longer than it has to be, because I don't remember what I was talking about last time, but I was like, oh man, the airplanes having dual prong headphones, because I've got follow up on that, and I was just listening to myself from last show, and I was just like, oh, that lasted too long. Anyway, I digress. So all of the Apple Watch case sizes they started with the original Apple Watch, which was retroactively named Series 0, through 3 came in a 38 and 42 millimeter case size. Then Series 4 through 6 came through 40 and 44 millimeter case sizes. Series 7, they changed it again, 7 through 9, 41 and 45 millimeters. Series 10 and 11, 42 and 46 millimeters. And then the SE has always been, all 3 generations of the SE has been 40 and 44 millimeter case size. And then all of the Ultra have been 49 millimeters. What we were actually talking about was band compatibility. So the Apple Watch Ultra has been compatible with a larger size band. So I guess the only part I really don't know is if the SE, I would expect that it's compatible with the Series 0 through 6 were all compatible, despite the case size increase between those two. And the SE, I would expect, is also compatible with all of those, because it's the same size as Series 4 through 6. And then I think compatibility was broken between 6 and 7, and then the 7 through 11 have been compatible, and then the larger 7 through 11 size, the 45 millimeter and the 46 millimeter, have been compatible with the Ultra.
If I think about it and I can put hands on one of my original bands, I will try it for follow-up to this.
Well, the Series 4 that you have and let me borrow, that should suffice as well.
Yeah, I still have to still
same
put my
same
hands on it, and
gotcha.
Because I know it's here, I just don't remember where all of it is at the moment. So,
and I don't remember what. So when I was listening to the when I was listening to the released version of the show that we talked about bands, for some reason I made a note for myself and to ask you about the titanium Milanese loop, because you said you did not like you could never get something about the getting the fit or the getting the right sizing, or I feel like sizing is the wrong term, but strapping in.
I had tried the steel Milanese loop, and the band looked great, but I didn't like that it would catch hair. And so I don't know if they've made any refinements there, or if my hair is just fine enough in general that would always be a problem because of the links in the Milanese loop. But that was my complaint with that.
I thought you had another. I remember you complaining. I remember that being an issue for you. And I thought you might have had another issue with the actual, like, getting it to fit on your wrist. Maybe that just had to do with the catching of a hair
Yeah, I think I made that statement like I didn't care for the way it felt or something to that extent as far as the fit goes, but it was in reference to catching the hair. It wasn't in reference to sizing.
Okay. Or getting the right fit.
Yeah.
Because the thing that I found interesting about the titanium Milanese loop is that the one that they made specifically for the Apple Watch Ultra last year was that you can dial in the size that you want it to be, and then you just have to like strap it on. And I don't remember exactly how that's accomplished. I did mess around with it in an Apple store one time, but not really. Like, it's not the same as like, you know, being able to sit down and like just like kind of study it. But I don't really think that, for some reason at the time that I was listening to the show, I was thinking maybe that would solve an issue for you, but I don't know.
Yeah, so. When I saw this in the notes, I went and pulled up the store and looked, and I don't remember them offering the 3 versions before as far as the lengths go. And maybe they did. It's been long enough that I just don't remember. But I don't remember. I don't personally have a recollection of having to choose different sizes, and it may just be that I was correct with the first one I ordered. You know, that I wouldn't remember that interaction if that were the case either. But it's something that I'll consider because I did like the look of it at least. It just never felt comfortable enough to wear because of the catching on the hair.
Yeah. So I did try it on in the store, and I didn't. Again, I didn't. It was, you know, for seconds, not even a minute, and it didn't initially catch my hair, so it wasn't a, you know. And I'm not a, you know, I've got hair on me, so.
Yeah, and that's why I make the comment of I don't know if maybe my hair is just too fine because I know that my hair is really fine.
I figured that's why you made that comment.
Yep. And I mean, we'll see. At some point, I'll try it. I really love the link bracelet styling, though. I just keep holding out, and hoping they'll make one again.
Well, they do.
Yeah,
no,
but it's not titanium.
What's interesting is they make it steel for a titanium watch because like the case is titanium, and they color matched it. So,
well, that's for they don't do the black finish for that one though, do they?
Do they? I don't know.
I don't think they do. I don't know. I'll have to look. Maybe there's an update that I can go play. Or maybe I just need to go to the store because you never know when you look at the bracelet in person. It always looks different than what the product shots look like anyway.
So the second bit of follow-up I have is about the dual prong headphones that connectors that you find in airplanes, and I did come across an article by Simple Flying, and that was they had three different explanations as to why that exists. One of them being it prevents theft. So if the airline is providing headphones for you to use, those dual prong headphones are not going, it would prevent the theft of those because the only place you would use them is in the airplane. So if you steal one, and who knows, I can, you tell me to prevent theft, I get it because it's not going to be useful anywhere else except for an airplane. So, and if you steal one, hopefully you'll hold on to it and just keep using it, and you're not going to steal others. So. The other thing was that article said from Simple Flying was also, it does to make money. I like how they were like, I'm skeptical probably because in the article it said probably not intentional when they first installed, but incompatible headsets are a great way to make money. I was like, I 100% believe it to be intentional. I believe it to be intentional to make money, as I would say that's number one, and then number two, theft. But the other one, I was like, okay, pneumatic headsets. So that is that the very first planes to feature headsets in the 60s were not electronic. They were not sending electric signals down a copper wire, but rather pushing air through a tube. And so you would need a right channel and a left channel. And so they had, the tubes that you push air through you'd have to have two of them just by the physical nature of transmitting sound in that way. And I thought that was interesting.
It's kind of clever. I wouldn't have thought about pneumatic
Yeah.
transmission.
Well, that we're too young for that.
Yeah.
At that time, I imagine that was like the right, the right cost effective way, the best technology at the time. And I don't know that, I don't know when headphones became, so I can think about like quarter-inch, the quarter-inch jack that you would plug into a receiver in a home stereo setup. You'd have like two loud. If you think about the '60s and the '70s, having two loudspeakers, a receiver, a turntable, later on a cassette deck. Anyway, it didn't occur to me, or I just remember seeing like people would have headphones and they plug into that quarter-inch jack, but. I don't know when that really became a thing, and there's not a lot of wiring there. So to do an entire airplane, I guess it just was pneumatic was the better option, or the option that people thought to go. Because like sometimes we don't go with the better option. Sometimes somebody comes later and think there's a better way of doing this, and it is not necessarily because technology got better. It didn't occur to them to do it the better way in the first place.
Yeah.
So I did have a link to a YouTube video that suggested another explanation that I would not have expected at all. And that is that there were some airlines that had a certain kind of noise canceling. And so I can see this being on maybe a higher end luxury plane or maybe for first class, and that they would have this feature. Because I could see them rolling out this feature to first class first, and then spreading to the rest of the airplane, and maybe a certain convention stuck, and it wasn't necessarily. But so the left and the right prong. So I guess I'll back up and talk about the 3.5 millimeter jack that we all are used to, and I guess our kids are going to be less used. I mean, my kids do have some wired headphones. That they use with computers and for school, but it's not like how, we grew up with it. Like headphones were only wired, but because my kids also have wireless headphones, and I think the ones that they use more are the wireless ones, which is good for them. But you have a cylindrical input connector, and you've got, if it's stereo, you've got three regions. You've got a region for the left channel, a region for the right channel, and a region for grounding. And then if you've got, the microphone, you have four regions. So same three as the first, and then one for the microphone. So with the dual prong headphones, you'd have a left channel and a right channel, and the left channel would have its own prong, and the right channel would have its own prong, and they'd each have their own grounding region. And then the one region would be also for a microphone. And so in this YouTube video, they described that a microphone was used to create a signal for some amount of active noise canceling. So this would be rudimentary noise canceling, but they would use the microphone in the cabin to create a noise canceling effect, or not just an effect, actual noise canceling. And that's why they had dual prongs. So you had left and right audio, grounding for the audio and grounding for the microphone.
It's interesting to think about. I know it, at least like it's not on par with my thought process of like the cable runs or something, but it is on par with there being a technical reason potentially as well. So certainly interesting to hear the multiple takes.
Yeah. I think I got through that fast enough. I was trying not to delay, trying not to get stuck on it for too long.
Yeah, I think so. I don't do a lot of cutting down edits anymore. Occasionally I would do that. And if there's something specific that I think blends, then, I'll grab it and all. But I tend to try to take the spirit of the free-flowing conversation released as a podcast in the spirit that it was designed. So I try to only cut off end, beginning, end, or if there's a specific digression that just needs to be cut out.
I feel like you. Most of the digressions are left in there, but that's the whole. That's what this was for.
I
So
think it was fun follow up.
thank you. I was had a good time with it.
So did you? Because we've got a fairly interesting list of articles as potential topics. Did you come across this other one just randomly after like looking at one of the other ones by chance, or was it just something you came across to add to?
Becca came across it and she said, "Check this out." And so I checked it out. And then when I read, and I was gonna put when I came to put it in here and to put in the follow up, and then I read your notes and I was like, "Oh, perfect. This is where this should fit in."
And that's why I was curious, because it's really timely. Like it was interesting for me to have thoughts on some of the other stuff and then see that, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. Okay,
I thought that was cool. And then I saw the last one that you threw in there, and I'm like, thank goodness.
yeah. Finally, some sanity somewhere in one corner of the world.
I feel like we could talk about all these topics in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I don't.
Not.
Well, to be honest, when I was looking over it, like there's one that I don't know that I really have much to say, and it's because, and so we'll skip to that one first, the second one, and it's just because I've repeatedly found myself saying something similar over the past few weeks, and so there's a certain point where it shouldn't be surprising, but I wanted to call it out for two reasons. So the article that I'm referencing was done or published by Time, and it was talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene's rift with the party, so to speak, just a nicer way to put it, I suppose. And specifically talking about problems with constituents and healthcare costs and all as a result of not coming to the table and negotiating during the shutdown kind of stuff. Like all of this has been fairly well publicized. I don't think I have to dive into all of the details. But one of the things that I thought interesting, there were two pieces that I thought were really interesting out of the article. One was having apparently a number of Republicans speak out about criticizing the lack of negotiation or something to that effect, where they are, according to the article, not understanding of her position because they're saying that negotiations or conversations are happening anyway, which I find to be ridiculous and just kind of in line with the rest of the party rhetoric that has been constantly spewed for a while. Because you could say you're talking about anything you want. It doesn't matter. It's behind closed doors. Nobody's going to know one way or another unless you've got someone actually spilling the beans on or leaking the story. And then the other piece is not actually in the note list. It's in the article. But apparently, as a result of Representative Greene's criticism, conspiracies have started being propagated about her. One in the article was referenced being posted by Laura Loomer, who was saying that she's obviously attempting to pivot and become a Democrat to run on the Democratic presidential ticket, blah, 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 which I think is a hilarious spin. Like, I can't see that ever happening in any, maybe in some multiple parallel universe somewhere, but certainly not ours.
That kind of spin, you said spin, and it made me think of literal spinning thing in the sense that it's like, if you were to take like an action figure or a Barbie doll, and I want to turn their head 2 degrees, the equivalent of what Laura Loomer did was just like pull the head right off.
Exactly.
It's like that's like so. Anyway.
And so it's an interesting thing. I wanted to call attention to it just because I would like to continue to kind of remind that there are occasionally things on both sides that are positive, and there are occasional things on both sides that are negative. It's just that there's been more negative from one side than the other in recent years. And so it's good to make sure you recognize the lack of division of a lot of ideas to help reset and recenter that rhetoric, I think.
Yeah. I think that they're all just means to an end. There are a few good ones, but most of them are just means to an end. It's like I've gotten to the point with President Trump that I no longer care for justice. I just want him dead. And the context of that was that he does not seem to be in good health, and I don't think that it is unreasonable to think that he may not make it all 4 years based on his age and apparent health issues that seem to be they seem to be covering up. So, I could be wrong, but Rebecca was telling me, she was like, I want him to stay around long enough to maybe potentially broker a peace deal because crazy listens to crazy. And the first crazy was Netanyahu, and the second crazy was Trump.
I suppose that's one way to look at it.
I get it. Means to an end. And so I see like Marjorie Taylor Greene as means to an end. Yes, please create a rift in the Republican Party. Hold up a mirror to their face. But as soon as you've served your purpose, get out of here. You're to the guillotines with you, because, and when I say guillotines, I mean a guillotine to your career, not a literal guillotine. I don't think that we should do that.
I might have a disagreement there, but we'll table that.
So I don't think that we should do that if we can do it to their career. But if given if it gets bad enough, then the point being is, like, I don't know how long the American people have been trying and wanting a reasonable request. And I don't know how, and maybe we are just going to go, we're going to go so long that we don't ever get to that point. But, recently I came across something where it's like, the French, of course, criticizing Americans, and that rightfully so. But there was criticism of the way we protest. And they said the criticism was that you protest one at a time. We protest by showing up every day until something is done. And it's like, stop scheduling your protest and show up every day until they fix the problem. I was like, that's not wrong. It's not wrong.
I saw something. I don't know if it was the same thing.
But it was probably the same thing.
General thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only reason I say that I don't know that I would, like, I might have a disagreement on the guillotine thing is I think I'm a little less patient on where we are at this point. Like, I don't wish for it by any means, but I mean, we've, however many months ago, I specifically made the statement that I just don't see a path out of this without bloodshed. And that's kind of where I consistently find myself, where I don't see any meaningful change occurring until blood is drawn specifically for that change. And it's part of it. 100%, I guarantee, is I'm just more pessimistic on my outlook at this point. So I get that. It's just, that's where my headspace is. So I don't want to see it. I don't want to have it happen. But even in the same episode, I remember saying, but I would rather it happen now while I'm the one to deal with it, so that my son doesn't have to.
I think I actually think we're the same on this. And that is, I think that we are both nonviolent people, but we both understand that sometimes violence is the last option.
Yeah, that's a good way to summarize it.
Yeah. So, because it's that neither of us, it's not the desired option, but sometimes it has to be the last option because there are no other options and change hasn't happened. So the only other thing I was going to say was I didn't realize that Representative Green represented the northwest corner of Georgia, or you have in here Georgia's northwest, and I was like, oh man, that's the part I drive through.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought she was elsewhere in the state.
I mean, I can understand why, but no, I mean, if you look at her campaign messaging and all, to me, it makes sense anywhere in the state, but really makes sense in the northern half of the state. So I don't know that I would have been able to pick out whether it was northwest or northeast from that, other than I would expect Savannah to have a bit of a, or not Savannah, sorry, Athens, to have a little more of a impact on the overall campaign messaging out of the Northeast.
I think you're right.
But maybe not. It's tough to say.
Yeah, the only place I feel like she wouldn't fit is representing the Atlanta metro area.
Yeah.
Or where the Atlanta metro area falls.
Yeah, that'd be a difficult sell.
Yeah. So.
I do want to follow that up real quick, though. Not since it took like a kind of a pessimistic turn there. There is some optimism as well. So the last thing that I had put in the notes was that as we record, there's a looming deadline for news agencies to agree to sign the whatever agreement release thing to not operate as usual with regard to the Pentagon and actually getting information from senior officials and then not go through this vetting process and blah, blah, blah. And in the article, it sounded like pretty much every major, every media outlet, period, has agreed not to sign and is standing firm. Now, whether that holds, we'll see. But I think the most telling piece or the most interesting piece was that that includes CBS is the one that caved, right, and had someone put over the newsroom.
Yes, the most recent episode of
Barry Weiss.
Barry
I think
Weiss.
is the last name. Yes,
Barry Weiss.
And so that includes CBS, which I was to me that's an indicator of this might actually be a line in the sand that we're finally getting somewhere.
Good. Yeah. No, I initially didn't see CBS in that list, and I saw Fox News, CNN, ABC, and others, and then below that I see CBS, and I was like, oh goodness, because I didn't see it in there, and I was like, that was conspicuous to me, but now seeing it there, I was like, oh good, I'm glad you brought that to attention, because I just watched that episode of Last Week Tonight, and I was like, oof, this is not good.
Yeah, I watched that episode as well, but I was kind of half paying attention to other stuff too, so I planned to rewatch it to make sure I didn't miss some things. But the pieces that I caught, and that's part of why I couldn't remember the name for sure off the top of my head, but the pieces I caught were definitely, we'll have to see how that shakes out.
Yeah. So,
and then we get to go back to more negative news. Isn't that fun?
Yeah, I think we should end this on a negative note. Okay.
Hopefully we'll have kind of an uplifting thought somewhere. But one of the things that I've been kind of loosely paying attention to, I would say is a good way to paraphrase it, since, early 80s? No, late 80s, has been the overall discourse on climate change and trying to figure out what that actually means. And I say loosely because there are times when I'll dive deeper into a related topic and kind of understand more, and there are times when it's just a real high level keeping track of where the conversation's going instead of really being that focused on it. And this is another one of those cycles where I have not been as focused on it because of all the damage that this administration has done to anything and everything to try to protect any level of environmental thing. And I don't think that's hyperbole in this case. And so I haven't read a lot of the news related to climate change because our current administration is actively doing everything possible to erase any progress that's been made. And the article that I saw was that we've reached one of the tipping points that has long been considered a major problem, where there's probably no reset or restoration back to prior to this tipping point. And it doesn't mean it's all apocalyptic at this point either. It just means that the Earth as we know it will no longer be able to be returned to pre-industrial levels of climate and environmental factors, life in general, right? And that is that the warm water corals are bleaching at a much quicker rate than prior, and that indicates that more than likely, how would I phrase it? So I'll just read the statement from the article to make it simple. That the new reality is that we're reaching the first in a series of catastrophic and potentially irreversible climate tipping points. And this first one is the widespread death of coral reefs. And this was according to a recent report produced by over 160 scientists all across the world. And there are multiple of these events that, if you've read any of the literature, they call out specific things as being kind of the transitory points. But this first one is essentially warm water corals dying out and being gone. And so that's kind of where we are at the moment. I should have had a better statement prepared for being able to summarize it. I come to realize now, after the not having extra supporting information in the bullet points.
So I think that it's a bad thing, and if it's something that it needs to be taken seriously by the global population, global civilization, human civilization, and I think more people are. The people who stand to benefit from the destruction of the earth are the same people that were fighting for various other things. They're the same people that are trying to pretend like it's. They're the same people. They're the same people that are trying to have us wage a culture war with one another so that we don't wage a class war with them. I think I think when you said there are things that are never going to come back. There are things that will be irrevocably changed. That may give way to new things that never existed before, and that's kind of cool. But it's not a great way. It's not a gamble that we should be taking. I don't think that we should be curators of the earth in such a way that we have to leave everything pristine and never let anything get touched and put everything behind lock and key. But we should also be what we should be, instead of curators of the earth, but we should be good stewards of the earth, where I understand that one of the things, the oldest tree in the world is a bristlecone. I think it's in California, and the location of it is unknown because we can't share that information because there's just too many people, too many bad actors that would go there and somebody would do something bad to it. And that's how humans are, and that's disappointing. So that's where I say that we should be good stewards. It's like, hey, yeah, you have access to the land where it's located, and we can only allow a certain number of people in a given amount of time because we don't want to damage the area. We want to have as low impact on it as possible, but we also want to be able to look at it and do that. So I don't think we should be curators, but we should be good stewards, and we certainly haven't been good stewards of the earth.
Yeah, this is one that it's difficult to really, in a lot of ways, difficult to really wrap your head around the potential how quick or how slow, like what the timeline actually is, depending on different things, because there are so many different variables. The initial concern. It's been a while since I've read all the details. It was something to the effect of the average climate warming by 1.5 degrees was considered a major tipping point, and we're going to blow past that. I think that's a definitive. There's no way we can course correct prior to that being broken.
Not in our lifetime.
Yeah, and so it is worth noting that anytime we're talking about irrevocable climate damage or environmental damage, it's a bad thing, yes, and it is possible that out of that bad thing something positive will occur, but it's the same type thing with thinking about Earth as an organism in its own right. That thing that might occur might also be the destruction of a habitable environment for us because we're
Exactly.
the disease in
Exactly.
this particular scenario. Like that, nature in general likes balance and will do things to gravitate toward some balance. And if that means the obliteration of a species in order to eventually course correct to some balanced state, like that's not a it's not a sentient being making those decisions. It doesn't care that we're human or not, and doesn't care what other things could be destroyed.
There's nothing to care.
Right. And so this is just more emphasis for why we shouldn't be looking to make those particular gambles, because there's no being there to show compassion or empathy. It's just the obliteration of the problem.
It's there was, the dinosaurs were killed out by an asteroid that hit the Earth. It wasn't It wasn't personal. It wasn't anything. It was an event that occurred. There's no intention. There's no desire. It just happened. And, the Earth is going to be fine. I'm not worried about the Earth. Our current ecosystem is in trouble, and that ecosystem is what supports our lives. And,
That's a really good distinction to emphasize it. Yeah. I like that.
So,
and I think it's also worth adding, sorry, I didn't realize you were about to say something else.
No.
But I think it's also worth adding that we know there are also things that could happen naturally that we anticipate happening that would obliterate our way of life as we know it as well, such as certain volcanoes if they were to erupt, or sun's eventual detonation. Like, there are things that we know will destroy our lives if they occur. So it's not even that there's this new risk. There have always been risks for wiping out human life. We're just not doing our part to reduce those risks.
Right. The risk that we can mitigate are ones that we aren't.
Right.
It was timely that I saw, I think it was yesterday or today. I think yesterday I saw a I think it was a keynote speech by Carl Sagan in 1990. He was at the Emerging Issues Forum at the University of North Carolina in early 1990, so 35 years ago, speaking specifically about climate change. So, sadly, we did not listen. Nobody listened to him, and nobody's been listening to the other scientists. But he put this into perspective that just really was helpful. Like there's no need to convince me. I already understand the importance of dealing with climate change, the importance of counteracting the climate change that humans have created. And this was more along the lines of talking to people. It's like, there's two pieces, but the thing that Carl Sagan said, I'll talk about what Carl Sagan said. In 1990, he mentioned that the U.S. government, so this is at the end of the Cold War, the Berlin Wall has fallen at this point. Like, at this point, I think it's been, the Berlin Wall had been down for less than 3 months. And anyway, he mentioned in 1990, the U.S. government alone spent $10 trillion in adjusting for inflation. That's almost $25 trillion. It's funny. He in his speech, he said something about, like, he said, when he asked that question, he often gets the answer billions and billions. So anyway, yeah, trillions. That's a lot of money. And, that's over several decades, but still a lot of money. And that was fighting the Cold War, which was not a 100% guarantee that would, that the United Soviet Socialist Republic would defeat the United States. There was no, there was not a 100% guarantee for that. So if there was a 90% guarantee of that, I think that it'd be okay to say, yeah, $10 trillion was worth keeping our, at the time, 35 years ago, it might be easy to say spending $10 trillion might be worth keeping our freedom. Fast forward to today, and we've got, what we've got going on. Anyway, I digress. The thing about the climate change is we know that this is a 100% guarantee. Like, we 100% know that this is happening. And we can't even get people to agree that it's happening. We can't even get people to understand. And I mean, I have ideas as to why, and that's not really what, I don't think that's really what we're here to talk about, but at this moment, but it's, I guess I didn't really have anywhere to go with that, but other, just, you know, that perspective, it's like, there was no, we saw the imminent threat.
How much money do you think the United States has spent since 1945 on the Cold War? Sometimes I ask this question, and from the back of the audience comes an answer: billions and billions. The amount of money that the United States has spent on the Cold War since 1945 is approximately $10 trillion. Trillion, that's the big one, with the T. What could you buy for $10 trillion? The answer is, you could buy everything in the United States except the land. Everything. Every building, truck, bus, car, boat, plane, pencil, baby's diaper. Everything in the United States except the land. That's what we've spent on the Cold War. So now let me ask, how certain was it that the Russians were going to invade? Was it 100% certain? Guess not, since they never invaded. What if it was only, let's say, 10% certain? What would advocates of big military buildup have said? They would have said, we must be prudent. It's not enough to count on only the most likely circumstance. If the worst happens, and it's really extremely dangerous for us, we have to prepare for that. Remote contingencies, if they're serious enough, have to be prepared for. It's classic military thinking. You prepare for the worst case. And so now I ask my friends who are comfortable with that argument, including the editorial page of the Wall Street Journal, why doesn't that same argument apply to global warming? You don't think it's 100% likely? Fine, you're entitled to think that. If it's only a small probability of it happening, since the consequences are so serious, don't you have to make some serious investment to prevent it or mitigate it? I think there's a double standard of argument working, and I don't think we should permit it.
Well, I think there's an interesting add-on to that too, is that if you think about the amount of money that we've talked about, we collectively have talked about investing into like renewable energy or other efforts that would help in some, at least in some significant way, combat the effects and change, we're still not into the trillions of dollars that have been talked about. Like, it's, at best, we might have hit $1 billion or a few billion by now with like different incentives to try to spur growth in those areas. But it's definitely not to the scale of what would have been spent on defensive strategies, maybe is a way to think of it, as an all-encompassing bucket.
Counteracting.
Yeah, because you think about U.S. spending, like the number one bucket where money is put year over year over year is very specifically military and defense to an absurd amount. Yeah. And to an absurd amount. Like I do, there's an interesting kind of dissonance here, because I do understand the if you have the biggest stick or the most advanced military, it's really difficult for people to decide that it's worth the risk of engaging. Right? That like I do understand the defensive component of a large military and what that ensures on the global stage. But you can have the most advanced military without it being the only thing that you spend that much money into. Like that budget is just absurd.
It is. It is. It's just a means for the top 1% to stay the top 1%. That's all it ends up being.
Yeah, I don't know that I had anything else that I would add to that either. Like it's not like I've done a deep dive into what could be reallocated or moved around and what would actually be required to maintain versus what we say is required to maintain. Because at the end of the day, I'm not entitled to the information that I would need to make those judgments.
And there are plenty of people that do. Like, well, the first thing is, it's like, there are plenty of people that can figure this out. It's not an easy, I don't want to say this is an easy problem, but right now the problem isn't solving the problem. Right now the problem is that nobody's allowed to solve the problem.
Yeah.
There's a problem, there's a problem outside of, there's a problem holding back the problem. So the other thing that I found interesting, I think I've mentioned this before, but if you don't think that climate change is real and you don't believe the scientists, that's okay. Go talk to your insurance agent and find out how many climate change scientists they may not call them that, but how many climate change scientists are employed by the insurance companies to identify how much money, how to quantify the insurance premiums on things.
You can actually even make it a step easier. Just look at attempting to purchase a location for a home in Florida compare the insurance rates or whether you can even get insurance for the same type of dwelling or structure that exists over the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Perhaps in Nebraska compared to landlocked Nebraska. So,
yeah, talking to the insurance companies will definitely shed some light on what the real problems are on a larger scale.
Yeah.
So there's one other article that you had added that I haven't really gone deeply into. I just, it's what we were talking about at the beginning anyway, so the nice little callback to that piece.
I guess for better or for worse, you could say. So what we're experiencing is not new. There was an article written. I'm now trying to remember who. I think it was. Oh, it was Vox. I kept wanting to say The Guardian, but maybe in my head I was seeing the X in Vox, and it looked similar enough to the font that they use for The Guardian. But no. Yeah. So this is not new, and human civilization has gone through this. They mention. The article mentions ancient Rome and the transition from I don't remember what ancient Rome was with the senators, but essentially transition to an autocracy with the Caesars in charge for a few hundred years. And guess what? Italy still's out there. So
So I found it interesting also because I've seen a number of reminders that dealing with fascism and the drift toward an authoritarian regime is not new to us either.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a part of our history pretty much the entire time that we've been a country. And I read a really good book about the undercurrent, I guess is a good way to put it, of fascism throughout American history. It was real interesting to read about some things that you just don't. You see the signs that it was probably a problem, but it's not something that's talked about or delved into, at least in my education throughout the entirety of my educational career. So I don't know that I could even point it to a failure of recognizing and understanding it, as opposed to it just not being a core thing that's taught necessarily. But either way, that a whole different digression on the state of the education system, which is also getting worse. But seeing those has also helped to remember that we've been in a pretty constant cycle of fighting fascism for as long as we've been a country. And you combine that with a pretty constant cycle of societal distress that you can point to over time, sort of like we've talked about the generational turnings as well, where there are these cyclical patterns in history that it's why we have the adage that not to ignore history for being doomed to repeat it. You know, it's the larger interesting piece is that it tends to repeat anyway. And whether that is a failure of learning history or like the undercurrent of fascism in the United States, a just consistent cycle of it bubbling to the surface before it gets swatted back down. Like there's a point where you have to wonder, is it a kind of a doomed cycle because of the nature of the societal structure and different cultural ideologies, et cetera, or is it that it's this cyclical pattern because we just haven't reached that point where it can finally be quelled or where it finally breaks through? Like whichever outcome.
I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting to think about all of these different cyclical patterns that we've talked about. Like, which is it only a pattern for now, or will it continue to be a never-ending pattern because of the ebbs and flows of just human behavior?
I think there are two things that the thoughts that I have for that is like, it's probably cyclical. It's probably stuck in the existence, you know, as a scourge on humanity, until we can live long enough to squash the cycle, if that is possible.
I think it's possible. I think it's possible when we're no longer confined to one planet, like whatever that actually looks like.
Yeah,
I don't think we are capable
with that.
Well, I don't think we're capable of showing enough empathy to our fellow humans while we're stuck on the same rock.
And I don't know why that is. I really don't know why that is.
Yeah, I don't either. And the only thing that keeps coming to mind as a potential answer is that once there's a path off, then the divide that we currently see ceases to really matter. You know, like at that point, the country, the oceans are no longer the boundaries or the country borders or whatever. And that's the only explanation that I've got.
Or the other one that I thought of, and once, which is maybe a little more pessimistic view, but once we encounter an other that makes all of our current others feel the same, then we may be more united.
Yeah, that's certainly an option as well. It would be a reason to root for aliens to hurry up and show up and take over.
Yeah. So, or machines. But what we're looking for is either a galactic or a quantum change to fix something that it is within our ability to fix ourselves. So it seems. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work, or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap. I don't want it. I paused long enough just because there are a couple of places, but I don't want to have the pessimistic view. Otherwise, I wouldn't be continuing to try to spread the other messages otherwise, but
The pessimistic view seems like the most realistic, though.
well, the thing that I was going to say is that it does feel like there are enough people trying to turn the needle that it's probably not going to happen in our lifetimes, and so it might eventually happen even without the either galactic or quantum interruption.
Yeah.
It's just that the timetable doesn't necessarily suit being able to choose which comes first. Like, will the needle move on becoming more empathetic and more decent faster than technology will move to get us into a spacefaring species? And spacefaring isn't quite the right word, but I didn't really know. Like, interplanetary is not the right word either. Like, I think establishing even life on a larger base of operations in space than just the International Space Station, something that could be a stepping stone for part of society would also potentially kind of tick that box.
We have to go galactic.
Yeah, maybe.
And galactic's not that, for us now, galactic is pretty big, but it's certainly from a universal or from the perspective of the universe or the cosmos, it's quite small, but it is humanly really big. And what's even more interesting to me is that it's easier for us to explore space than it is for us to explore the ocean depths. We can't even explore an entire planet, so we're babies. We are not even a class 1 civilization. I just thought to add this. I wish I had thought about it earlier so you'd have seen it, but I had some after show. I have a little bonus after show item.
I see them.
Yep, I just added them. So I was going to say I started Murder Robot, and I got maybe 2 minutes in and was so sleepy at the time that I started. And this was like a week ago, that like after your recommendation, I think that night or the night after, I tried to start it, and I was like falling asleep. And so, but I haven't, the few minutes that I saw, it looks good. And so I will, it's near the top of my list for things that for me to watch when I have time to watch things on my own. So it was funnier than I was expecting it to be.
And I did finish out the
season 1.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, I'll try to get through it soon so that we can talk about it. So
I actually have you seen the preview or trailer for The Last Frontier?
I think so. Is that the one in the snow?
Yes, in Alaska.
That looks great.
It was not even on my radar. I was not planning to watch it or anything else, but I started it because it hit at just the right moment as I was sitting down to row the other day. And so it's going to be interesting to see if I catch up, because I'm doing shorter rows in addition to martial arts classes this week, because I'm competing in Nashville Saturday. And so
nice.
This week I'm intentionally adding 20-minute rows when I get home, just to keep the metabolic burn up and everything, so that I don't have to worry about making weight for competition. Not that I typically have to anyway, but just, playing it safe from that regard. That way I don't have to worry at all about what I'm eating. But anyway, so as a result, I'm making myself stop at the 20-minute mark or at the next convenient break in the episode, even though I don't really want to stop. So it'll be interesting to see if I catch up as they're releasing, or if all of them get released before I catch up.
Yes.
That's where I was going with that tangent.
Okay. So let me ask you, which should I start first, the Murderbot or the last
Murderbot.
Frontier?
Murderbot for sure. It was quite enjoyable, and it's shorter episodes.
Gotcha. Okay. I over the weekend watched a couple of different movies, and I'll recommend one, but I wanted to mention the other because the idea was good. So I'll start with it's like The Woman in Cabin 10. I'm going out of order or reverse order as far as our notes are concerned. The Woman in Cabin 10. It came out this year, I think maybe last month. It was, or the month, maybe August. It was good. Well, it was a good idea. The execution was what holds it back. But it was a really good idea, to the point where it's like, if you've got the time and you want to be critical of a movie, and it came out 4 days ago, so not 2 months ago. Anyway, but the scenery is nice. It's fancy people on a yacht. I assume they're going from England to. They're definitely going to Norway, but I think they disembarked they left from England. But it's got Keira Knightley and Guy Pearce and anyone else that I can remember.
Hannah Waddingham.
Hannah Waddingham. It's the first time I've seen her. It's the first thing I've seen her not be in Ted Lasso. So, it's, in my opinion, it's worth watching for the concept, but it was not executed well. Towards the end of it, it got better towards the end of the movie, but the beginning part, the main character I didn't think that her behavior fit her character, and it certainly was a little bit frustrating to watch the character do that, especially thinking like, this is not what a prize-winning journalist would do. Anyway, so that's most of what I've got to say about that. It was fun to watch, though, and it was fun to figure out, and I liked the sort of, oh, that's where you're going with this. That was the sort of like the concept of what was happening I thought was clever. So it's based on a book, so I am curious to know if the book is better. And then the other movie I watched was Honey, Don't. And I really liked that movie. It was so much fun to watch. It was Ethan Coen without Joel. And it was a good movie. It was a movie where I didn't quite realize it, but it was definitely film noir. But it wasn't done the way that we've come to, it didn't look like Double Indemnity or something like that. But I was like, you're watching it, I was like, oh, this is definitely film noir. And it's like, you've got all of the people. You've got a detective. You've got the femme fatale. You've got the cop that just is unhelpful and so forth. And so it's a modern film noir, and I really liked it and recommend it.
I'll have to watch it at some point. I hadn't heard of either one of these, so both are good takeaways.
Yeah, it was like I'm checking out the trailers on various streaming services, and Honey Don't has a better cast. It's got Aubrey Plaza and Chris Evans and Charlie Day. I think who else was in it? Chris Evans was hilarious. When he plays the asshole, it's always a delight. Especially having seen him be Captain America for so long. Yeah. I loved his character in Knives Out. That was really good. So
yeah, I did too.
Yeah, it's that kind of, he has that kind of he's that kind of guy. The main character, Honey, was portrayed by Margaret Qualley, and I was watching it, I was like, where have I seen her before? And I couldn't figure it out. And she was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay.
I was going to say that I have one more thing, and that is, even though it's a film noir and you can predict certain things, it has a nice modern take on film noir. And there was one thing that I was like, I didn't predict it until it was like right in front of my face. So I'd say it's a good family friendly movie for kids if your kids are all over 18.
Noted. I did watch F1 since we recorded. I know I had mentioned that I got it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I'm interested. I'm curious about it. I think it would be fun. I'm going to hold it to oh, what is it? Not. Oh, it might. No, not. So I liked Ferrari versus Ford, but that's not the one I'm thinking of.
I actually still haven't watched that one, and I do have it. I just haven't watched it yet.
It's good. It's good. There's another one. It's based on true events. It's the one that I think the guy directed it. I'm going to figure it out by looking it up because I can't think of what it is.
I was trying to think of other, like the only other racing movie that consistently comes to mind is Days of Thunder, but I know that's not what you're thinking of.
It's newer than Days of Thunder.
They did a Gran
Rush.
Turismo one. Okay.
That's what it was, Rush. Like I really like Rush. And
I don't think I've watched it.
Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one. So like I now will compare racing movies to Rush. Ron Howard is the director I was trying to think of.
Gotcha. I'll have to add Rush to the list of movies I need to watch.
Yeah, Rush is fantastic. It was better than Ford versus Ferrari was good. Rush is better.
Yeah, I've meant to sit down and watch Ford versus Ferrari a number of times and just haven't done so. Every time there's something else that just grabs me, or I don't have time, or like there's something each time where I see it, almost start it, and then notice something else.
There's something else. Yeah. No, I totally understand that.